Welcome to another episode of Stories from the Edge of Life. We have another very special guest today, Dr. Gil Naco. Good morning, Dr. Naco.
Hi, good morning.
Dr.
See
Naco,
you.
likewise, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
So I'm Gil Naco, and I was just explaining to Parag I was like in a race that Dr. Herbst had sort of tried to get in kind of at the last minute to start a fellowship uh, amongst several programs. So yeah, really my year was the first year of fellows, and it was just me and two other guys. So I am the first fellow at San Diego Hospice, whatever that means, um, and still doing this after 23 years. And if you count the year and a half that I did uh, moonlighting there as a resident, it's like 25 years in palliative medicine. So um,
Amazing.
yeah, it's been a long time. So
Yeah, and I'm Parag Bharadwaj. I'm a hospice and palliative medicine physician, and as well trained a few years after Dr. Naco in the same institution. And so, Dr. Naco, uh, tell us was the uh, what was the environment at that time within medicine in terms of hospice and palliative medicine? Because when I had never heard of it. I remember hearing it about it for the first time when I was doing my internship in 2000. And one of my seniors in my program was actually pursuing a fellowship. She actually ended up at San Diego Hospice. But tell us about like what was your experience? How did you hear about the field, and what drove you to pursue training in this particular field?
well, so San Diego Hospice. So I did my uh, residency at San Diego program, Scripps Mercy, and one of the rotations just happened to be going over to San Diego Hospice, and I just Dr. Herbst, I think, picked me out. She said, "You're like the prototypical personality for this, you know, form of medicine." After she saw me do some visits and things like that, and Dr. Julie Prazich too. So Dr. Herbst was the sort of founder of this amazing institution, and Dr. Prazich is still around, I think, San Diego, at least part of the time, and Dr. Lewis, I see him still from time to time. He lives still here. He was like my first boss, really. So, I mean, these are uh, during those times, it wasn't really a thing, palliative medicine. So, what I mean by that is that medicine was still in the diseases are they're the enemy, and I think a lot of doctors back then, maybe now even, feel that if you don't cure them, that you've let them down or that you've lost. Um, Not taking into a fact it's a natural part of life that you know. I think a lot of medicine I teach my residents. It's like, you know what, you actually heal a lot on your own without any help from any doctor over and over and over and over again for like 80 years, and then all of a sudden the body just sort of loses its wherewithal, and then basically I think a lot of it is this culture of ours. Medicine, science, and things like that are so highly looked upon, and I think the other part is that people sort of miss out on experiencing life, and then they just want to hold on and hold on, and their families want to hold on and hold on, and so yeah, basically palliative was basically, in my mind, trying to change the culture of medicine back then to now. where I trained at Loyola, there were 150 ICU beds. And that's just because that's where people went to die. Nobody ever died at home, in the late 90s, or at least very few did. And yeah, everybody died in the hospital, which I don't know if that's really the right thing. So, that was the environment that I kind of started out in, as far as like how medicine was. And it took a long time, probably the first 8 or 9 years of my career. Dr. Herbst would have me go to many of the community hospitals in the county. She got me privileges, and I'd go to ICUs and things like that, especially, and I'd go to their ethics teams, and it was a eye opener. I mean, for me, I had to change a lot of people's thinking, and this is not easy because I'm a really quiet guy. I kind of just skulk around, keep my head down, and I'm not like a big leader like, say, Charles von Gunten or Frank Ferris or you know Laurel Herbst, who really made their minds known. I just sort of like listened and tried to learn, but these guys, you'd go to an ICU and the nurses would whisper behind your back, "Oh my gosh, it's Dr. Naco. He's going to kill another one of our patients," or something like that. And it's like, what? If you forget that there's a disease process or there's a health challenge, that's really, you know, the issue. And so this is the environment that, back in 2000, 99, 98, 99, 2000, that I was sort of like starting with. And then, so why did I get into this? It's, I couldn't talk about it for a very long time. It's only been in the last couple of years. So when I was in residency, I lost my fiance to breast cancer. We were young, and a lot of people poo-pooed, "Oh, there's no way a 26-year-old is going to get breast cancer. There's no way." And then, like, it was breast cancer. And then, a lot of the oncologists and surgeons and things like that we um, met never even talked about death as a possibility. So I didn't even know, as a young physician, that it could happen. And I had all faith in medicine as well. So, I mean, when she passed away, it just broke me. I mean, I gotta say, I was in the deepest, darkest hole. And I can only talk about it really the last, like I said, few years, just because it's a way to communicate to the young people that I'm training that it's part of life. And then, you just gotta, it took a long time for me, but I got out of it, that hole, I mean. And then this experience that I had really was the impetus, I would have to say, and trying to understand this transition from our experience of life to whatever happens afterward. And um, like I said, I'm a really quiet guy, so I read way too much. I got to fill my time somehow. I don't really get into like the latest Netflix um, you know show that everybody's binge watching or anything like that. So um, I just like I said, I have my dog, who I introduced to Parag earlier, and I have my books, and that's it's good. It's a good way to be, because I still think that I have a purpose, and I can pass things on. So
Thank you, Dr. Naco. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, so I know it's not easy to always open up about personal things. I wasn't aware all these years. So tell us about.
only
Sorry?
Dr. really only Dr. Herbst really knew. I actually worked with
Yeah.
a lot of San Diego Hospice nurses. I hired them and to work in the unit that I have now, and really none of them ever knew. So it's like I said, I maybe it's a good thing that I'm uh, letting people know, in this sort of like format where it's recorded. I'm not like a real big on even getting my picture taken, but it took me a while to get my courage up to do this.
I know it's not easy, and so thank you very much. So Dr. Naco, what did you see at San Diego Hospice when you did your rotation there? What did you see there that was different from what you were seeing, when you were going through your training in medicine?
Well, first thing is the nurses. They there's so many names that I wouldn't want to start naming people, but they just stuck out and they just embraced me, and felt like this is just a nurturing place. Um, so it's not just the patients that they kind of took into their bosom. It was like me, and I really just felt almost from the very beginning that I was at home. So uh, I got into trouble with one of the admins because I was late. Like, I think maybe like an hour, but I don't know if you guys know Dix or Sosimo. I named him. He got really pissed at me. He's like, he thought I was some kind of like reprobate who was like trying to, skip out on the rotation or something like that. But the first person I met was Roger Strong. After that, and and uh, yeah, it was a good way to start. I mean, Roger's just such a kind person, and I actually hired him to work with me for a long time. And if you count the time that we started, 98 to uh, when he retired recently, because even when I left San Diego Hospice, I kept moonlighting still. We worked together for some 20 years. So um, it was maybe him, a lot of people too. Again, yeah, it's hard. I've been away for so long that I just don't want to forget anybody's names. But he's a guy, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Herbst, of course, who just passed away. You know, um, so many memories when I think back to how I was embraced, and then it just uh, was a nice feeling. It's really the only work situation where I felt supported and nurtured. This San Diego Hospice.
Great. So it sounds like the focus was not only on the patient, but also the people who took care of them.
Yeah, I think that was we supported each other, and I think that's one of the things that really came out of that was it was true teamwork. You know, um, and as a sort of like uh, somebody who was just getting to know what geriatric medicine was like, I didn't even know that multidisciplinary teams were something that had emerged. And it was great to have all those sort of like resources. So
Great. So uh, you mentioned you're probably one of the first fellows in the field uh, of hospice and palliative medicine. And tell us, when did you do your fellowship exactly?
99 and 2000. I still have the plaque from it says first fellow, and I'm not sure if I really it was one of the first three, I could say.
Yeah,
So
so you broke
uh,
the ground for all of us.
well, I know, I know, it's like I said, I was sort of like life happens and like stuff, things just sort of work out. I don't know if this had happened 10 years earlier, if I would have wound up as a palliative, I mean, you know, who knows? So it probably wouldn't have been really the emerging thing at the time, but there are so many factors, you know, the hospice benefit was starting, the um, Self-Determined Life Closure Act was passed, you know, in that time. Things like that were things that made hospice possible. The AIDS epidemic, the first pandemic of our careers, was still, you know, going strong, and there was really no cure. So these are things that really that were the environment for this field to sort of fire up. So,
So what, tell us about patient care experiences that you recall during your uh, rotation when you were training, or perhaps after you started working at San Diego Hospice, because it was a very unique place. So
I think
what in your opinion, apart from what you mentioned, when it came to patient care, made it so unique?
well, for me, so my Linda passed away in a lot of pain, and that became kind of one of my big areas of interest, and I'm still very much into being an advocate. You know, where I am now, I'm at the VA in San Diego, and you know, I'm involved in a lot of opiate uh, committees and things like that. So even in this, you know, time when opiates are sort of like something that these young physicians are very fearful of, I'm still, you know, trying to, uh, you know, guide the judicious use, I would say. And but so the people who I remember the most are the ones who were the biggest pain challenges. And Mark Wallace was somebody who was um, a big influence in me. He took me in for a third of my rotations. I mean, I could almost make up whatever rotation I wanted. You know, it is, since it was like um, just the start. We really didn't have any guidelines for it, all the stuff. Many things that were developed in that first year um, are still kind of going, to tell you the truth. But that's, you know, Dr. Von Gunten and Dr. Ferris and Dr. Herb sort of like made um, those big cornerstones at that time. But yeah, for me, uh, my remembrance is using really creative ways to control pain. And now I'm in a federal place, so I can't really use very much. Um, you know, intravenous ketamine was something that I had used for years, and then leadership changed, and now it's like I got to fight for it again. It's an interesting thing how this politics works. Um, but I remember these like a lady who had this um, who had ovarian cancer, and I don't even know if they would even do this anymore. But she had basically all her pelvic contents of her lower intestine, you know, large intestines removed, and it was such a um, you know, shocking thing to see, for one thing. And then the pain from the dressing changes was, you know, just, you know, she would be screaming in pain even on huge doses of fentanyl, IV, and bolusing and Versed and things like that for the dressing changes. We'd use ketamine mixed with morphine and lidocaine. And so these are things that I thought was like part of regular pain medicine. And then when I got to the VA, it was like, no, no, you can't use that. The IV lidocaine thing, hypodermoclysis, all these things that we did, um, that aren't really as mainstream as I thought they were. I had to learn a lot or unlearn a lot and try to figure out other ways to do it. Um, uh, so, but yeah, there are people who I think one of the young ones that I remember, and I just like everybody else, I remember the young ones a lot more easily, just because they do stick out, and you do get the feeling that they didn't get a fair chance to experience life. But um, there was a guy who uh, had a really bad headache, and he had a glio, and I just remember all the different things that we tried. And central pain is so difficult to really get a handle on, and so yeah, well, polypharmacy was not something we feared back then. We tried it all on somebody like him. So it's the memories are starting to fade already. So I don't know the exact things that we use, but I just remember um, doing these interesting maneuvers that even nowadays the current anesthesia pain docs, I don't they're not really as big into right away doing some kind of a spinal block or epidural or something like that. It was like something that we would do routinely. I don't know. It seemed like there was always somebody, not just on a PCA, but on the one of the 24 beds was on some form of spinal anesthesia. So now it's like, you could really do this if you really wanted to. And the person's in excruciating pain. The ethics behind it would say, give it a shot, but they just, it's just not it's a difficult thing to kind of get some of the anesthesia docs to be motivated by end of life. So
No, I think you summarized the contrast pretty well in terms of what is usual care and the things that were tried at San Diego Hospice. And from what I can gather, I'm pretty sure the two patients you mentioned, they did have relief from their pain because of all
yeah,
the
and,
things that were
yeah,
tried.
especially once Mark Wallace and his people started to come and try to help us. And all those, like I said, the creative stuff. We used to we had a contract with the university compounding pharmacy, and we'd make up all these magic creams, these uh, just things to try to make dressing changes bearable. We saw the worst of the worst in many ways. Definitely a tertiary care situation at San Diego Hospice. So this is a challenging time. It was a time of growth for me. Um, like I said, I was trying to dig myself out of a psychological hole, psychological spiritual hole that I was like going through as well. So I think one of the reasons I think it was a good experience for me is that I used to see a lot of patients. I don't know if you remember that, but I was always doing home visits or always taking extra shifts or calls and things like that. And
Yeah,
part of that,
I remember, sorry to interject. I remember you being called the most productive physician
it,
at San
I,
Diego
I like,
Hospice.
I think Dr. Herbst once showed me like a spreadsheet, and I almost saw twice as many. And I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to figure this end of life thing out, and that's just my way of like a part of it. I gotta say, I was probably immersing myself in it. You know, trying to get away from my own troubles by trying to find a purpose or something, or get trying to help others get out of their situations. So I just, yeah, no, that was my way of practicing medicine to try to find trying to find the way that I wanted to craft it in a way, and not to manipulate people or get them all to be happy and like well adjusted to their. But sometimes every once in a while, it just get something from all these experiences, so that the next time or the time after that, I have an experience to point to or a way to explain things that would maybe make it easier or more understandable for somebody who I'm treating right now. It's like I said, it's the thing about this palliative thing is because it's human nature that we're working with. It's in the human experience. We're, at least I don't know. Maybe you guys, the guys who come after me will figure it out. But I think there's just there's such a rich field. I mean, if you just think of the Western philosophy, the Eastern philosophy part of it, the and the spiritual, it's like there's just no way to figure it all out. But so it's always something. There's always something to learn, and it just keeps you going. It's for my experience, it's just like it gives me a purpose. It gives me something to keep me interested, really. Not humanity is it's an interesting, complicated thing. So.
Well, I'm so glad to hear all that the wisdom you shared, and life is just very interesting, right? So I'm glad that we got to cross paths a while ago, and now we are reconnecting again and getting to learn more of you. So with that, we will wind up this interview, and hopefully we'll have you back again.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.